Hello everyone, my name is Mudita. Today I will review a paper that is called Arbitrary-Threshold Fully Homomorphic Encryption with lower complexity. This paper studies how to make the threshold fully homomorphic encryption more practical when some parties do not participate in the decryption, and it proposed a new solution based on approximate secret sharing called ATASSES. This paper was presented in the 31st USENIX Security Symposium on August 13, 2025. So my presentation is organized as follows. First, I will briefly introduce the background of FHE and the threshold FHE. Then I will explain the main problem and motivation of the paper. After that, I will present the key idea, which is approximate secret sharing, followed by the presentation of the scheme ATAS and why it has lower complexity, and the experimental result, and finally strength limitation and conclusion. For the background, first let me introduce it. Fully homomorphic encryption, or FHE, allows computation to be performed directly on encrypted data without revealing the original plaintext. So after decryption, the user still gets the correct result. This makes FHE useful for privacy-sensitive applications such as cloud computing, medical data analysis, finance, and machine learning on encrypted data. Well, now this paper is not generally about FHE only, it focuses on threshold FHE. So in threshold FHE, the decryption authority is shared among multiple parties, so no single party can decrypt alone. This is important in multiple parties setting where data come from different users, but the final output still remain protected unless the enough parties cooperate. While there are many variants of fully homomorphic encryption schemes such as BFB, BGV, CKS, and ThFHE, we only gonna discuss about threshold FHE in this paper. So the main problem is that many existing threshold FHE scheme use the full threshold setting, where that means the decryption success only if all the parties, in theory, uh, participate. This sounds secure, but in practice it is fragile. In the real system, some parties may be unavailable. The paper gives three typical reasons. Firstly, some of the user may lose interest because decryption has cost. Second, some device may drop out due to network and power issues. And finally, some parties may be disrupted by the denial of service attack. So as a result, even if only a small number of parties are missing, the final decryption can fail. So this is where the core concept of the idea came from, the approximate secret sharing, or ApproxSS. Previously, the arbitrary threshold FHE scheme mainly followed the so-called noisy share idea. But they also argue that this is not the only way to protect the decryption. The key insight is that the aggregator does not actually need the exact decryption related values. Instead, it only needs an approximated values that is still sufficient to recover the plaintext correctly. Based on this observation, the paper introduced ApproxSS, or approximate secret sharing, as a new primitive with an approximate recovery. In simple terms, with any T shares, the aggregator can recover a value that is close to the secret, while fewer than T parties cannot determine the hidden offsets. So the contribution here is not just a faster protocol, but a new way to formulate the arbitrary threshold problem itself. Well then, the paper also introduced the approximate secret sharing as a key idea, and the next is to show how to realize it concretely. So that is where they proposed a new scheme called ATAS. ATAS, or uh, approximate secret sharing, approximate arbitrary threshold approximate secret sharing scheme based on novel idea encrypted shares. So it is a construction for the arbitrary threshold approximation secret sharing scheme. The important difference in this is instead of traditional noisy shares approach, ATAS protect the share by encryption. The goal is to still approximate recovery, but now the protocol is designed so that the threshold security is maintained while efficiency is improved. So conceptually, ATAS is the mechanism that turns the new primitive approximate secret sharing into an actual arbitrary threshold construction. So let me explain the high-level workflow of ATAS. So Step 1, the party side protection. Each party holds its local share of the message, sample, a small noise, term, and then encrypted both values locally. So instead of directly sending the noisy share, each party sends encrypted component each without directly concatenating them. So in step 2, the aggregator side combination. After receiving the ciphertext from at least 3 parties, the aggregator identifies the participant set, computes the corresponding Lagrange coefficient, and homomorphically combines the encrypted values into a ciphertext of the approximated result. While then the step 3, the threshold decryption. Finally, after receiving the T parties collaboratively decrypted the resulting the ciphertext and recover approximated message. So the key difference is that the aggregator combines the encrypted shares and then encrypted noise rather than directly seeing exposed noisy shares. So now that we understand that ATASSES work, the next question is why designs give the lower complexity? The paper gives 3 main reasons why ATASSES is more efficient. First, it avoids the blown-up noise problem. In noisy shared method, the aggregator combines terms like the shared message and the noisy shares with the Lagrange coefficient. So the noisy can also be multiplied and become too large. While in ATASSES, the encrypted shares and encrypted noise are handled separately, which avoid this direct noisy share blown up. The second, ATASSES separately party overhead from the output size. Here n is the number of parties and k is the size of the decrypted output. The expensive quadratic big O n squared work is performed on a constant size key material, while only the remaining work depends on the k, which is the size of the decrypted output, which is why the computation improved from O(n squared k to O(n squared plus nk). The same intuition also explains the communication gain, where the key-related message scale with n, while the ciphertext-related scale with k. So the communication improved from O(n k to O(n plus k). The third is that unlike some prior lower complexity methods, ATASSES does not require knowing the participant set in advance. It only needs that information after the ciphertext from at least T parties that have been received, which make it more practical under the dropout and the DOS settings. So the theory looks strong. The next question is whether the experimental support this claim. So the author compare ATASSES against existing approximate secret sharing baseline, including replicate approximate secret sharing baseline, type 1 Shamir approximate secret sharing, type 2 Shamir approximate secret sharing. The implementation is built on Latigo using BFV base setting. They vary 3 main parameters: n, the number of parties, t, the threshold, and k, the output size. So the experiments are designed to test how the scheme behaves under different system size, the output length. The main result is that the ATASSES consistently show lower running time than the prior baseline across different values of n, t, and k. The improvement becomes more visible as the number of parties grows. In particular, the paper report a speed up of 3.83 times to 15.4 times when applied with a system of 1,000 parties. So this supports the claim that ATASSES scale better for large arbitrary threshold setting. So we move on to the strength and the limitation of ATASSES. First major strength is the clarity of the conceptual contribution. The paper does not simply optimize a existing protocol. Instead, it reformulates the arbitrary threshold problem through the new primitive approximate secret sharing, which is a meaningful contribution by itself. Second, the paper achieved a strong asymptotic efficiency improvement, both in computation and communication. This is one of the main reasons the paper stands out. Third, the participant model is more practical. Unlike some prior approach, ATASSES does not require the participant set to be known before decryption, which fit the real-world dropout scenario much better. And the speed up is much more faster when at 1,000 parties. On the limitation side, ATASSES is still a two-round protocol, so it's not a one-shot design. Also, the experiments are convincing, but they are tied to a specific BFV and Latigo implementation. Finally, the author themselves also noted that this encrypted share construction may not yet be final or optimal realization, which leaves room for future improvement. Finally, let me close with an overall conclusion, where in the conclusion, this paper reformulates arbitrary threshold FHE through the new primitive called approximate second sharing, and then realized that idea through the concrete construction of ATASSES. The main technical value of ATASSES is to reduce the computation cost and the communication cost, while also handling an unknown participation sets more practically. The experiment supports this claim with a strong speedup, especially at a large scale. So overall, I think this paper makes a strong and practical contribution toward making arbitrary threshold FHE more scalable and robust in the real-world multi-party settings. Thank you for listening. Thank you.